The scent of spiced bread and the distant hum of grav cars were the twin heartbeats of Shardisia, the capital city of Shardis. 10-year-old Tiania loved it all. The bustling market squares where vendors hawked shimmering fabrics and exotic fruits. The towering spires of the Sarkian Council building that pierced the perpetually twilight sky. And most of all, the cozy warmth of the small apartment she shared with her grandparents, Rosalina and Josiah. She was a proud Sarkian, just like everyone else she knew. Her family had always been from Shardis, their roots deeply entwined with the planet's ancient, crystalline soil. She was a typical Sarkian girl, with a quick wit, an insatiable curiosity, and a laugh that echoed like wind chimes. But lately, a subtle, unsettling discord had begun to hum beneath the surface of her perfectly ordinary life. It started small, almost imperceptibly, like a faint static on a comms channel. Her grandparents, whom she adored more than anything, had always been a little different. Grandma Rosalina, with her silver hair often braided with intricate, glowing beads, and Grandpa Josiah, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 stars, possessed a quiet grace that set them apart. But now, their differences were becoming harder to ignore. Tiania would often catch them speaking in a language she didn't understand, a melodic, liquid tongue that flowed like water over smooth stones. It wasn't any of the common Sarkian dialects, nor the rougher trade languages she'd heard in the market. It was utterly alien, yet strangely beautiful. They'd stop abruptly if she entered the room, their faces morphing into practiced smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. One afternoon, while helping Grandma Rosalina sort through a pile of iridescent textiles, Tiania noticed her grandmother's hands. They moved with an almost ethereal grace, not just sorting, but performing a series of delicate, precise gestures. A flick of the wrist, a spiral of the fingers, a subtle clenching of the palm. It was like watching a silent dance. "Grandma," Tiania asked, her voice soft, "what are you doing with your hands?" Rosalina's movements froze. She quickly tucked her hands into the folds of her apron, her smile a little too bright. "Just stretching, dear. My old joints, you know." Tiania nodded, but a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. Her grandmother's joints were never stiff. She moved with the agility of someone half her age. Then there were the whispers. Late at night, when the city was quiet, Tiania would sometimes wake to the hushed murmur of her grandparents' voices from the living room. The strange language again, laced with what sounded like urgency, sometimes sorrow. She'd creep to the door, pressing her ear against the cool metal, trying to decipher a single word, but it was always just a melodic blur. When she asked them about it the next morning, they'd simply say they were discussing old family stories, or planning a surprise for her. Their evasiveness, once charming, now felt like a wall. Even stranger were the moments when people seemed to not see them. Once, in a crowded market, Tiania had been holding Grandpa Josiah's hand, weaving through a throng of shoppers. A large, boisterous merchant, laden with baskets of exotic fruits, had walked directly towards them. Tiania braced herself for impact, but the merchant simply passed through the space where Grandpa Josiah stood, his eyes unfocused, as if looking straight through him. Tiania gasped, pulling her hand back. Grandpa Josiah, without missing a beat, had gently squeezed her hand and steered her away. A fleeting, unreadable expression on his face. "Just a clumsy fellow, dear," he'd murmured. But Tiania knew it was more than that. She'd seen it happen again, in smaller ways. A guard looking past them, a friend not noticing them in a busy square. It was as if, at times, her grandparents could become ghosts in plain sight. "Grandpa," she'd asked him one evening, her voice trembling slightly, "why do you and Grandma speak that funny language? And why do people sometimes not see us?" Josiah had knelt, his kind eyes meeting hers. He'd stroked her hair, a gesture that always brought her comfort. "Some things, little star, are best left unspoken for now. There are old ways, old stories, that are not for young ears. But know this: we do everything we do to keep you safe. Always remember that. His words were meant to reassure, but they only deepened her confusion. Safe from what? And why couldn't she know? Life, however, had a way of sweeping away personal mysteries with larger, more terrifying ones. The news feeds, once filled with local politics and trade reports, began to broadcast increasingly alarming messages from the Cicadian Empire. The Cicadians, a reptilian-like species known for their advanced technology and ruthless expansion, were threatening war. They inhabited the neighboring system, and their ships, sleek and menacing, were now visible on long-range scanners, a dark stain against the distant stars. The core of their grievance was simple. The Cicadians claimed the Sarkians were harboring Crystalians. Crystalians, a mythical race, most Sarkians believed. Beings of pure light and energy, said to possess incredible powers. Stories of them were relegated to ancient folklore, bedtime tales of shimmering cities and impossible magic. The Sarkian Council vehemently denied the accusations, their leaders issuing stern declarations that no such beings existed on Shardis. Tiania, like everyone else, scoffed at the idea. Crystalians? That was just nonsense. Then came the broadcast that shattered everything. The Cicadian High Commander, a formidable reptilian with scales like polished obsidian, appeared on every screen across Shardis. Behind him, projected onto a massive holographic display, were images, not of mythical beings, but of people. 4 individuals, young and vibrant, standing against a backdrop of what looked like a magnificent, crystalline city. 2 of them, Tiania recognized instantly, her breath catching in her throat. A younger, more regal Grandma Rosalina, her silver hair flowing like a cascade of starlight, and a strong, proud Grandpa Josiah, his eyes burning with an intensity she'd never seen. The other 2 were strangers, a young man and woman, their faces filled with a similar, almost ethereal beauty. The Cicadian commander's voice boomed, accusing the Sarkians of deception, of sheltering the last remnants of a dangerous, ancient power. The reaction across Shardis was immediate and chaotic. People recognized Josiah and Rosalina. They were known figures in Shardisia, respected elders, always present, always kind. How could they be these mythical Crystalians? The Sarkian Council, caught off guard, doubled down on their denials, claiming the images were fabrications, Cicadian propaganda. But a tremor of doubt ran through the population. Tiania watched the news, her heart pounding. She looked at her grandparents, who sat in stunned silence, their faces pale, their secrets suddenly laid bare for the galaxy to see. The whispers, the strange language, the invisibility, it all clicked into place with a terrifying finality. "Grandma? Grandpa?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Rosalina reached out, her hand trembling as she clasped Tiania's. It's complicated, little star," she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. Josiah simply nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen, a deep sorrow etched into his features. The Cicadians, enraged by the Sarkian denials, didn't wait for further negotiations. The first wave of attacks hit Shardis within hours. Explosions rocked Shardisia, turning familiar streets into infernos. The sky, once a comforting twilight, was now streaked with the fiery trails of Cicadian bombardment. Panic erupted. Gravcars crashed, buildings crumbled, and the screams of the terrified filled the air. Tiania's world, her safe, predictable world, was disintegrating around her. "We have to go." Grandpa Josiah's voice was sharp, urgent, unlike anything Tiania had ever heard from him. He grabbed her hand, pulling her towards the emergency escape hatch in their apartment, a hatch Tiania had never known existed. Grandma Rosalina was already there, her face grim, her hands moving in those familiar, intricate gestures, not stretching now, but manipulating a complex lock mechanism that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The hatch hissed open, revealing a narrow, dark shaft. They descended into the labyrinthine underbelly of Shardisia, a network of forgotten tunnels and maintenance conduits. The air was thick with dust, and the acrid smell of burning metal. Tiania stumbled, her small legs struggling to keep up with her grandparents' hurried pace. Explosions rumbled above them, shaking the very foundations of the city. She could hear the distant wail of emergency sirens, the shouts of people, and the terrifying, guttural roars of Cicadian ground troops. "Where are we going?" Tiania cried, tears streaming down her face. Her throat was raw from the smoke and fear. "We have to get off, Shardis, little star," Grandma Rosalina said, her voice strained. "They're hunting us, all of us." Tiania didn't understand. Why all of us? She was Sarkian, or was she? The images on the screen, her grandparents' strange powers. A terrifying truth began to dawn on her. A truth too vast for her young mind to fully grasp. They moved like shadows, her grandparents employing their strange abilities with increasing frequency. When a patrol of Cicadian soldiers rounded a corner ahead, Grandpa Josiah simply raised a hand, and for a moment, the soldiers seemed to look right through them, their eyes scanning the empty corridor. When a pile of rubble blocked their path, Grandma Rosalina's hands glowed faintly, and the heavy debris shifted, creating a narrow passage. Tiania watched, mesmerized and terrified. This wasn't magic from a story. This was real, and it was happening to her. Her sadness was a heavy cloak, wrapping around her heart. She thought of her friends, Elara, with her bright, curious eyes, and Kale, with his booming laugh. They were still up there, in the crumbling city. She was leaving them behind. She was leaving her home. "My friends," she sobbed. "What about Elara and Kale? I can't just leave them." Grandma Rosalina pulled her into a tight embrace, her own tears mingling with Tiania's. "Oh, my sweet girl, we have no choice. We must survive. For them, for everyone." Her words offered little comfort. Tiania felt a profound sense of loss, a severance from everything she had ever known. They emerged into a deserted, crumbling section of the city, near what looked like an abandoned cargo bay. The sky above was a sickening orange, reflecting the fires below. Cicadian ships, dark silhouettes against the inferno, crisscrossed the heavens. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and destruction. "This way," Grandpa Josiah urged, pulling her towards a massive, rusted cargo door. His hands, too, began to glow, tracing intricate patterns on the ancient metal. The door groaned, then slowly slid open, revealing not another tunnel, but a cavernous space, dimly lit by emergency lights. Inside, the space was vast and empty, save for a single, shimmering anomaly in the center. It was a swirling vortex of iridescent light, humming with an almost imperceptible energy. It pulsed, a kaleidoscope of colors that seemed to draw the very air into its depths. Tiania stared, her fear momentarily replaced by awe. "What is that?" she whispered, her voice hoarse.